on, Wolfpack Nation? Hope everybody's doing well this evening. Obviously, it's a great evening for sure. It always is after a big win, especially a dominant one like we had over Syracuse, 41-17, and again back in front of Wolfpack Nation, being 6-0. Heading into obviously a huge game here upcoming against Carolina. So we're going to be talking about that a little bit. But for those who are listening in with us again, so making one of our very own is out this week as he is celebrating his third wedding anniversary. So congratulations to him making on that. So today filling in is I think somebody that can fill in quite nicely. That's Ryan Williams from Inside Pack Sports. So Ryan, hope you're doing well today, my friend. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, sir. It's a pleasure being on.
Yeah, man. So again, before though we jump into kind of talking about Syracuse game, one thing I did want to bring up is first of all, thanking everybody who entered into our giveaway for the 2 Carolina tickets and the parking pass as we were raising money for the Jimmy V Foundation in honor of Bougie High, who again, for those who don't know, was the brother of one of our ticket giveaway winners who passed away suddenly after the Clemson game. Was like only in his early 40s and was actually a former NC State athlete. Was a track star for NC State. Actually holds several records still at NC State. So was a great cause and raising over $600. Is always a great thing. So thank you all so much for those who entered, and congratulations to the McBride family who did end up winning the giveaway. So kind of diving in now into the Syracuse game. So obviously, I think obviously first thoughts obviously is that obviously got off to a slow start, but my initial kind of thoughts, and again, I'll let you, Ryan, kind of jump into this first, and Mike, I'll let you follow. But I think that when I was watching the offense in the first quarter, I wasn't necessarily saying like golly, what's going on? We're stinking out there. What's going on with Beck or whatever. Like I overall thought that it just first of all, it was obvious that we tried to focus more on running the ball, which I think a lot of state fans wanted. But then also too, we were aggressive and we were trying to go for some home run plays, which was great to see and is never a bad idea. So, but we picked it up, and Leary had a great game. Obviously, Bam Knight I think is setting himself to be one of the greatest return specialist maybe in NC State history. He's had a heck of a 2-game stretch here, so for sure. But yeah, Ryan, do you have anything to kind of add on that in terms of initial thoughts on the game yesterday?
Yeah, I would say the game kind of went about how I expected. You came off of a tough loss to Wake. You had some guys beat up. You're playing a cold game, and then you have to turn around and you got to get the guys up, play Syracuse. Now,
Mm-hmm.
Syracuse isn't a top Atlantic team, but
Yeah.
you still have to face guys like Sean Tucker, right? And they have some great defensive players. They were listed as like a top 25 defensive team.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like for State to come out and kind of dominate the way that they did, I think they wanted to establish a run game early. And I think it was interesting that they pointed out that Beck likes to plan against the strengths of the other team. So
Mm-hmm.
Syracuse is a great run defense team, and State comes out and they're just pounding the ball. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you're trying to just set up the offense for further along, down the game, and by establishing the run, and you can kind of control the tempo of the game. And it was crazy. Once we got to halftime, I was like, man, this game is flying by because it seemed like all State
Mm-hmm.
did was just run, and they really didn't
Yeah.
start airing it out until the latter half of the second quarter. And that's when they started moving the ball. And then, the second half was just a whole different ball game. It was just big pass, and just moving at
Yep.
will at that point.
Yep. Yep. Michael, you have anything to add on that as well?
Yeah, just kind of it almost. The fact that this was a 0-0 game at the end of the first quarter and then it was 28-7 at halftime was pretty crazy. But we've been in a couple games like that this year that we just start slow on offense, but our defense is still playing well and keeps us in the game until there's finally kind of a spark in the offense.
Mm-hmm.
And it just kind of felt like what we've seen all season, which we'd like to get out to a faster starts, especially this upcoming week with UNC. Obviously they have an explosive offense, so we can't fall behind there or start out slow on offense.
Yeah.
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 And I was just going
But
to add, I wonder if part of it too is Beck. He knows we can pass the ball. He knows what he has in Leary. He knows what he has in the receivers. And I think he
yes.
almost wants to see if, hey, can we run the ball? Can we move these guys to where we don't have to feel like we're pressed to pass the ball every time? Because you saw that in the
Yeah.
late game, Leary can throw for 400 yards if you let
Yeah.
him.
Right.
And it's almost like Beck wants to push the run game to see if he can get something going there without having to rely on the passing game. And I
Hmm.
think that's why a lot of games start slow, is because he wants to kind of fill out the waters and then make adjustments thereafter.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, again, I mean, and at the end of the day, I mean, we've been putting up points over the last couple weeks, for sure. Obviously, scoring 41 against Syracuse, 45 against 42 against Wake, 28 against Florida State, 28 against Louisville, 31, 30 against Miami, 33 against Boston College. So, I mean, overall, we can score points, which is a great thing. So, I guess the only thing is, especially next week, I think next week, and again, we'll talk about next week, but I think if my initial theory is that if we can punch them in the mouth early, and get the momentum on our side, and what's going to be a packed house for sure, that can that could be a great thing for us, especially because I think with Sam Howell and with UNC, if you give them a reason to believe, then they'll kind of run with it. And so but again, one of the things I did want to kind of bring up for sure is, obviously there's a lot of people that were on Beck, especially um early during his and definitely last game, because we didn't run the ball more. And I think this time we ran the ball more, and yet, I mean, people still aren't really 100% sold, which, I mean, again, that's the name of the game. I truly do believe that, again, unfortunately, with offense coordinators and defense coordinators, they're always going to be the scapegoats. That, if a bad play happens, it's easy to say, well, why did Beck make that call, or
Yeah.
why did Gibson
Right.
make that call? And it's like, at the end of the day, it's all that matters is how many points are we putting on the board. Now, I know obviously of the 41 we put up, 7 of them are by Drake Thomas and our defense. So, okay, 34. But still, I mean, 34 points is going to win you most games in the ACC. So, again, I'm not too worried about that. But I know that some people, more actually mentioned here, what are y'all's theories on why we can't run the ball? So, Ryan, do you have any kind of initial thoughts on that question? I mean, because it
Yeah,
definitely does seem like that Bam, and Ricky start off spectacular at the beginning of the season, but now I feel like they've almost, I would say, come back to earth a little bit, but just haven't been as explosive as they were at the beginning of the season.
yeah. I think a very under talked about injury that the team has faced is losing Zavala. I feel like when he
Yeah.
was at left guard, I was looking at the numbers. I mean, we were rushing for 150 plus basically every game, and then he goes out, and then you're forced to move McMahon over, and you're
Hmm.
already kind of shallow on the offensive line anyway. And
Hmm.
I just feel like it changed the whole dynamic. I mean, you're moving one guy from the right to the left, and it seems like since then the run game just hasn't been the same. And they've tried off the left side, they've tried off the right side, and you'll pop some runs here and there. And they really started to add in motion and the H back,
Yep.
and that's
Hmm.
helped some. But it's just it's crazy. I don't know what it is, but I
Hmm.
think a big issue was losing Zavala and just changing up how that O line lined up and worked together. I think that was a big blow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Well,
I would
go
I
ahead,
would
Michael.
agree, and it, like you said, we're using Penix more and just getting him
Hmm.
quick passes that essentially are like a little screen pass or a shovel pass or something, and get him in going in motion, and I think we've had success with that, and so that might be taking away some of the carries, but
Hmm. Yeah. Well, and again, I mean, I definitely think, and I think the three of us, I mean, making Michael and myself, kind of when Savala went down, we all initially said that we initially thought that losing Savala was not going to be that big of a loss, just because, you know, from offensive, but I mean, the proof is in the pudding now at this point. So I mean, ever since we lost Zavala, we've
right.
struggled. So obviously, losing Zavala was actually much more impactful than we had originally expected. But I think that with a UNC defense that has proven to be, a little bit Swiss cheese at times in multiple phases, mostly through the passing game. But so and again, we'll talk a little bit more about UNC, but I just can't help myself when you got a big game coming up like we
Yeah.
do. kind of thinking about it a little bit here. But one thing I did want to talk about though is Devin Leary, because I mean, for those State fans who don't know, you could argue, and you can argue this, and I was actually listening to an Inside Pack Sports stream, and one thing which they had pointed out was that he statistically right now is having one of the best seasons that a quarterback has had at NC State in football history, and so I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about that. So, and again, this is from Inside Pack Sports, so credits to them on that. So right now, Leary is first in the ACC in conference play in touchdowns. He also has the lowest number of turnovers, so interceptions in the ACC. He's also has 31 touchdown passes in 11 games, which is the highest for NC State since 2012, when Mike Glennon had 31 and 17 interceptions, but Leary only has 5. But also too, Mike Glennon had those 31 touchdowns at the end of the season, so meaning that Leary still has 2 more games, and he's tied right now with Mike Glennon. And then also too, for another retrospect as well, is that Russell Wilson had 31 touchdowns and 11 interceptions at the end of his season in 2010. So again, Leary has 31 and 5 interceptions right now with 2 more games to go. So, I mean, I know that especially like last night, I saw a graphic where they kind of had all the ACC quarterbacks lined up, and they were talking about, well, Leary's numbers are really comparable right now, with with other teams in the ACC or whatever it may be. But you think about just from an NC State wise, I mean, Philip Rivers. So Philip Rivers obviously had a top tier NFL talent in Jericho Cottrey, and I think that Emeka is you could argue is the best receiver on our team, but I think that one thing that Leary doesn't get enough credit for is that he isn't playing with necessarily like a stud wide receiver, like just like an absolute like easy like top 3 round wide receiver. You know what I mean? Like a stud wide receiver, and he's still putting up these numbers. And I mean, like watching the game last night, I mean, it just kept on going through my head over and over again. Like, wow, Leary is just so good. I mean, he's just so great at keeping his head, collected and just making the plays. And I mean, he's thrown for over 300 yards in the last 5 games, if I'm not mistaken, and multiple touchdowns. Hasn't really turned the ball over besides Wake Forest. He threw 2 interceptions, then he threw 1 interception on a Hail Mary against Florida State. But I mean, he's having a heck of a season for sure. And I mean, it's an interesting point. So, and Ryan, maybe with you being with IPS, you can kind of elaborate a little bit more on that. But when I was looking at when I heard that stat, I was like, wow, that's hard to beat right there.
Yeah, and it's crazy. It's crazy to think about. And I don't know if it's because he has a clear visor and Philip wore the clear visor as well. But I mean, he's 3 touchdown passes away from tying Philip Rivers. And I mean, to me, it's in the bag. Like, he's going to get this, right. So you're guaranteed the UNC game in a bowl game. And I was so happy on Saturday when he did the little pop pass to Thayer, because I was like, wait, that's a touchdown pass right there. And I mean, I think State was used to like Russell having legs and being able to get out the pocket, but like Leary, he makes plays in the pocket. I think it was the pass to Tuttle. He was just sitting there, and then he did a quick wraparound, lost the defender, rolled out, and just threw a dime to Tuttle in the back of the end zone. And you're like, this dude isn't mobile, but he can make plays. I think he's just one of those guys. He has the it factor. He hit a bunch of Porter Rooks in between a cover 2, I think twice. I mean, just straight dimes. And I mean, he's just I saw him throw during the summer. I was like, this guy, he has some talent. And I think the biggest thing for him was just getting the confidence, right? So I think it was 3 or 4 games last year. So he really couldn't get in a groove. It was Beck's first year. And, this year, I think
Leary didn't have an offseason either to prepare with Beck either.
Right. And just to see him finally settle in the offense, I mean, it's amazing. Yeah, I think State's just spoiled having great quarterbacks.
Yeah. QBU.
Yeah.
QBU.
Yeah. I mean, like, I can tell how much he's just gotten, like you said, more comfortable. as from the beginning of the season, and he's been good all season, but he just looks better and better. And you mentioned the one to Tootle, that the touchdown pass, but there was a couple other ones. I think another one to Porter Rooks and another one to Devin Carter where, Syracuse got pressure up front with their front four, and he just kind of slid up in the pocket and just kept his eyes downfield the whole time and hit both of them for big passes.
Yeah, and that went to Devin Carter, man. It just seemed like he just flicked it and it was gone.
Yeah.
And I was like, this pass isn't coming down. And I think it was like 55 yards or something in the air. And, it's awesome when you have guys like Carter that can just make a play. And I think he trusts those guys. And it's great to see because, they're playmakers. And you can just throw it up there and they'll go get it.
Well, and especially too, like, the two deep passes, the one thing I loved about each of those passes, so the first one to Carter was, Carter low-key mossed the guy. I know maybe not many people knows that, but he straight up mossed that cornerback. And then the one to Thayer, Devin was rolling out of the pocket and hit Thayer right in stride. It was an absolute dime of a pass. So, and I know we kind of talked about this before, but he's definitely in the, because I think when we had like Ryan Finley, we really loved him as a pocket quarterback. But it's just like you said, it's a great conversation that we're having, that we're literally talking about within the last 20 years that we've had
another QB.
Five? We've had five, NFL talent quarterbacks.
Right.
Not many schools at all can say that. Not many schools can say they've had like three. We've had five in the past 21 years, basically, which is unreal. So with that being said, though, one thing which I did want to talk about is obviously defense. I think that one of my expectations going in, and so before the season, if you told me that we were going to lose Peyton Wilson basically after the second game and lose Isaiah halfway through the season, we're going to rely on, and also to lose Cyrus Fagan as well, that not to say that we would struggle, but just I'm not really confident per se, but literally every single game this season, there isn't really a game that I can really think of. Even the Wake Forest one, where I know they scored 45 points, but the offense, just the whole game itself kind of put the defense in some tough positions. But again, overall, there really hasn't been one game this season where I can look at and be like, man, defense had a bad game that day. Like, there really hasn't. And I got to give my hats off, first of all, to Tony Gibson, but also, Doran is a defensive coach, so I bet you that Doran has his hat a little, at least a little bit in that defense. So hats off to the staff, to Doran for bringing in quality assistant coaches, but also hats off to the players, obviously, that execute and that next man up mentality. For Drake to step in and really, to literally go basically from preseason Peyton Wilson being the favorite for Defensive Player of the Year to Isaiah Moore being the favorite, and now Drake Thomas is low key jumping into that conversation as well.
Yeah,
it's unreal.
Yeah, and it's crazy too. You lose Peyton and you lose Isaiah, but then you got guys like Betty. I remember there was one play. He, like, as soon as Tucker got that ball, Betty knew exactly where the hole was. He fired right through the gap and tackled him 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
And two, they're physical guys, right?
Yeah.
They're great. And I think too, you touched on Gibson, and I think his defense allows these guys to be productive and be successful. I think what we saw under Huxtable was a lot of just line up and blitz, right? You would just blitz straight at the guy in front of you. But Gibson runs a lot of stunts with the D line. He does a lot of wraparound blitzes with the linebackers. He'll come at you from the corner. He'll come at you from the safety. So I really think his defensive scheme kind of confuses the offensive lines and puts guys in positions to make plays. And, you're talking about how the scapegoats are always coaches, but sometimes, the players have to make plays. You can put them in any position, but they have to make play, right? And I think with that over the years, and this year you have guys, they're in a position to make a play, and then they make the play. And I think it's paying dividends.
Yeah. Michael, you have anything out on
that? Kind of echoing what you said. If you told me we would lose those guys, first couple games and then halfway through the season, and then a couple more go down.
And CJ Clark too. Totally forgot about CJ Clark too.
Yeah. And it's really impressive.
And and obviously too, one thing which I kind of like, which I know is maybe something that maybe not a lot of people talk about, maybe really notice, but I love like so you look at like two defensive coordinators I think of that arguably are two of the best in the business. One that's not with us, not is has been retired. The old Virginia Tech defensive coordinator that was with Frank Beamer for years. I can't think of his name, but maybe Ryan or Michael, you
Bud,
can help
Bud
me.
Foster.
Bud Foster, yeah, Bud Foster, and then Brett Venables over at Clemson. Those are two defense coordinators, and where are they? Where are they during any game? On the field, they are on the sideline with the players, right in the middle of it, giving signals like they're right in the middle of it. And
Yeah.
Gibson, right there in the middle of it, right on the field. And same thing with Beck, right there on the field, right in the middle of it.
Yep.
And I don't know, just for some reason, again, I don't know if I know that maybe it's a preference thing for coordinators. But I kind of like,
Right.
having coordinators that are right there, in the middle of it so they can, like, I don't know, it's just kind of a preference thing. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I just
I,
kind of have a preference
yeah.
to,
I know what you're saying. Like if
yeah,
I can see like if you're on the field with the players, I feel like obviously they have, the phones and stuff that if they're up in the tower, they can talk to the players, but I feel like you just get a better feel of the game and how the players are feeling if you're
yeah.
right there on the sideline with them.
Well,
Yeah,
and
and
also
I think
too
that
that they did.
goes.
Well, and sorry,
You go
Ryan.
ahead.
One thing I want to add too is, and I think also too, like basically instead of whoever the middle linebacker is calling in, basically defense coordinator can jump right in, so Gibson can jump right in
Yeah.
there right when the defense comes off and starts talking with them about adjustments. It's not, hey, so and so tell
Yeah.
so and so to do this.
Right.
It's
Right.
like you can tell them directly, immediately right there. So,
Yeah.
so go ahead, Ryan. I apologize.
No, man, that's fine. And I was going to say, I think it comes back to that family environment that Dorn preaches about so much. He's like, we have the culture here, we have the family environment. And I think those guys just love being around one another. And I think those coaches want to be down there and be around them. I think they want to be
Hmm.
involved. And I think, everyone trusts and respects one another and they want to be there. And I think that's how it works for them. And obviously it works on the field. And it's like you said, it's nice to see. You don't have the grad assistants and whatnot making the calls and relaying it through a headset. You have the actual coaches down there, and they can
Yeah.
coach
Hmm.
during the game instead of at halftime.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Now, one thing too, Ryan, which I wanted to talk about because I know from your tweets that that I know where you stand on this, and
Mhm.
but even if you didn't, I would want to talk about it anyway because I wouldn't understand why that you don't agree with me. But for those people after the Wake Forest game calling for Dave Doran's head,
Yeah,
that are all of a sudden are really quiet after a stomping of Syracuse yesterday. I mean, one stat yesterday which I loved, which I think is just unbelievable, is that literally after yesterday, Doran has had four out of his last 5 seasons has had winning conference seasons, which has been the first time since before they had 8 season schedules. So meaning, I mean,
Yeah.
it's pretty much has been at least 40, 50 years basically since that has happened at NC State. So I mean, and then on top of, I mean, you could just tell for that this the mentality of this team, the mentality of the program, that never quit attitude, is there every single
right.
game. I mean, Wake Forest. I mean, for us to literally fight back at the end of the first half and make it a game, for us to really fight back at the end of the game, and should have had an opportunity to go and tie the game, with a field goal. Um, you know, I just I don't
Yeah.
understand, and again, I understand the worry of them thinking that, okay, like, Doran didn't win against Wake Forest, so he's never going to get it done. It's like, come on, guys. I mean, it's he's what?
So
He's probably what in his late 40s. I mean, he's got a lot of
yeah,
years left at NC State, folks.
Yeah.
yeah.
So go
And,
ahead,
and
Ryan.
I think my counter argument too is look at Kelly at Notre Dame. The dude wins 10 games every year, but what does he have to show for it, right? They've gone to the playoffs and they've gotten beat handily basically every
Smoked.
year.
Hmm.
So if you are creating this narrative where you're winning but you're not winning good enough, then he should be fired. But it doesn't. Obviously, that's not going to happen. And
Yeah.
I think he's the first state coach in history to have either four or five eight win game seasons.
Yep.
So he's basically set the baseline at 8 years. And I guarantee you, if you had to ask a lot of people at the beginning of his tenure with what we ended up with O'Brien, if you told them we would be winning 8 games, basically guaranteed a year, they'd be like, "Oh my God, I paid the dude."
Mm-hmm.
And,
Yeah.
and the thing is,
Yeah.
too, is you got to remember. I mean, he's doing this hurt. I think we were predicted to win 6.5 games.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we got that easily. And even last year, you were playing Hockman all year. You still come out with 8 wins. I mean, he's changed the culture there. I mean, I see like during the summer, just being around those guys, like especially this summer, I was like, these guys are different. I mean, everyone is so tight with one another. They have a great culture. They all work hard and they all play for each other. There's no like selfish play to the guys. I think they take care of one another. And I think we're very lucky to have that because there's no other team in the ACC aside from Clemson that's having the success consistently that State is having.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, and especially too, because I mean, I truly do believe and that I love seeing a program that's consistent. Obviously the story with O'Brien was just a wave. Every single year was just an up and down
Yep.
roller coaster. And so for us to consistently be able to take care of business. Now I know obviously maybe you could say that Dorn hasn't had the number of, big upset wins that O'Brien had. I mean, I understand it, but at the end of the day, I think that the key for any program that consistently year after year competes in the ACC is a coach that's been at that school for a long time. That's had the opportunity to build the program from the ground up, which Dorn had to do. I mean, again, people don't even realize that what Dorn was handed. Again, this is no disrespect at all to the players that were a part of the 2013 team, but he got handed nothing. He got handed
Right.
out pretty much nothing. I mean, so he really had to start from the ground up, and because I truly do believe that with the team that we have now, with the guys who have come back next year, with the recruits that he has coming in, with the quarterback room he has, that I mean, literally, he's going to have not only Leary for probably next season, but Aaron McLaughlin, Ben Finley, has MJ Morris coming in, so you're going to have a great quarterback at any one time on the field for you that I think we're going to be competitive in the ACC for quite some time, and again,
Yep.
because Doran too, he's also done a really great job of bringing in quality transfers.
Yep.
And again, I think that's one thing that people don't realize is I know that we didn't take, and we still can. And by the way, too, everybody was saying,
Yeah.
oh, like, we lost a weight, like, it's over with. I mean, there's a possibility,
Yes.
that we can still make it there.
Yes.
So I mean, who's to say that next year it can't happen again or the year after? I mean, we're right there. I mean, and you
Right.
see it. You see the the increase better and better every year. So
Yeah, and two, it's not to harp on the fans that are upset with it because I completely understand because it's like you want to win every game, and I feel like we were the better team against Wake Forest. You should have won that game. Same thing with Mississippi State and Miami. I feel like those were very winnable games. But at the same time, you also have to have a baseline, right? So you talked about O'Brien getting an upset win here and there. Part of me wants to be able to win 8, 9 games consistently and be able to be competitive and, be a favorite in the games that we're supposed to, win,
hmm
as opposed to O'Brien, you're winning 6, 7 games. And then he had the big win against Clemson, right? That was his big win, the big win against Florida State. But it's like, other
hmm
than that, there was no excitement. Um,
hmm
you were losing to teams you shouldn't lose to, like Maryland. But now I feel like teams are just handling business. But he still does have to get that big win. But overall, I mean, you have to have a baseline.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and because one thing too, especially with you're looking at this season is, I mean, you look at the 3 losses that we've had, and now that we've seen how the season has played out, I mean, again, I know, you never like to talk about, well, at least we had a good loss, but I mean, seriously though, folks, I mean, Mississippi State has had a heck of a season. Miami, all of a sudden with Tyler Van Dyke, looks like a completely different team. I mean, literally, Tyler Van Dyke might have saved Manny Diaz's job,
Oh, easily,
and then
easily.
Yeah.
and then Wake Forest. I mean, Clausen can go down possibly. I mean, first of all, I mean, again, it's just a broken record. But if Clausen's here after the season with all these coaching changes like Florida popping up,
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
I
that's a
I
new
don't get
one.
it. I don't get it. So again, it's to literally say, I mean, because I mean, and I think we talked about this in the last live stream, Ryan, and maybe you can kind of add a little bit of input as well. But when's like the last bad loss that Dorrance had? Like just like oh my gosh, like why did you lose that game? I mean, because
Right.
even the Wake Forest one in 2018 that I remember that everybody said at the time, man, that was a bad loss. Like, why'd you lose that? I mean, I know at the end of the day we shouldn't have lost that game, but Jamie Newman, who we thought was, oh man, this guy's a third stringer, like this guy's a scrub, like, but I
Right.
mean, he turned out to be pretty good, So I mean, maybe it wasn't as bad of a loss now as it maybe we thought then. So it's a process, but that's my initial thoughts on it. So so anyway, so kind of jumping in a little bit now. So one thing which I did want to kind of clarify, and for those who are basically not sure, because I actually kind of had to remind myself about this in terms of how NC State can make it to the ACC championship game, even though Wake Forest and all of us would still have 2 ACC losses. So basically, how it works, just as a quick reminder. So if Wake Forest loses on Saturday against Boston College and we win, us, Wake Forest, and Clemson would all have 2 ACC losses. So the tiebreaker would be head-to-head winners. Well, we beat Clemson. Clemson beat Wake Forest beat us. So that doesn't do anything. So then it goes down to division wins and losses. And Wake Forest, us and Clemson, one of our losses in the ACC was with the Coastal Division. So Clemson and us only have 1 Atlantic loss, while Wake Forest has 2. So that eliminates Wake Forest. And since we beat Clemson, then we would basically get the head-to-head tiebreaker. So I know that might be a little bit of a head-scratcher there, but I wanted to kind of explain that for those who kind of look at it and go, well, wait a second here. Like, we all have 2 AC losses. How does that work? And so just wanted to kind of explain that a little bit there. So anyway, but now kind of jumping into it. So obviously Carolina, huge game for sure. I mean, I think that for not only for recruiting, which is obvious, for the psyche of the program, there's just so much on the line, because I mean, I truly do think that, I mean, this is going to be 2 great quarterbacks going head to head, 2 great quarterbacks. I mean, obviously Sam Howell is going to be probably a top 2 round draft pick, in next year's NFL draft, which, I mean, for those who were curious if Sam Howell's going to stick around, he participated in senior day for Carolina. And so, I mean, I think that pretty much solidifies he's going. But again, it's going to be a good one. And I mean, because I know one thing as well, Ryan, I wanted to kind of maybe see if you can kind of shed some light on, but I know Sam Howell, he didn't play against Wofford. And when I watched the video back and him coming out, he looked a little banged up. And because I was even saying as well that, I mean, if you're Sam Howell, do you even risk coming back? Because I know that if I'm NC State and he's back on the field, I'm going at him. I mean, not necessarily saying I want to, hurt the guy, like knock him out. But I mean, then we're here to play football. It's an aggressive game, and I mean, if we can help our chances by forcing them to play somebody else besides Sam Howell, it's in our favor. You know what I mean? Because I mean, at the end of the day, he has a bright NFL future coming up. So, and it's a little bit quicker turnaround time, 6 days instead of 7 days, which I know maybe not be much, but it's something to think about,
Yeah,
I mean, go ahead,
I
Mario.
was gonna say, I think it'll be interesting to kind of see where the betting line moves on this, right? I think State opened up as a 5-point favorite, but I
Correct.
think that's with Howell factored in playing. I know there's been rumblings and rumors of what possibly could be going on with him. I would not be shocked if he doesn't play the game. I don't know. They haven't clarified the severity of his injury, but he's definitely hurt. Like you said, I mean, there's something wrong with him, right? But given how the season has gone, given how their offensive line has been with letting him get hit, I would be very surprised if he sacrificed getting hurt even more to play a final game to get in wins and then play in a small bowl game.
Which I doubt he would play in even.
Right. And I just don't see it likely. He's a Florida dude. I don't think he has big ties to the state UNC rivalry. And obviously, if he has the capability of playing max, try to talk him into it because I think otherwise they really don't have much of a chance on offense. But I don't know. Me personally, I would be surprised if he plays.
Yeah. And you mentioned the line right now is -7. You said it opened at 5. Wow. It's already at 7. So,
wow.
But yeah, I mean, he's at least for this year, he's basically been a running back who can throw the ball for them. I mean, he's just like taken so many hits, and I mean, he's a big guy. Like he's what 225, I think. So like he can take them, and I know like that game against when they played Wake Forest, he had some crazy runs and broke a bunch of tackles. But yeah, that's like what he's been doing every game, and I'm sure it's taking a toll on him.
Yeah. Well, and especially too when, unfortunately, I mean, I said this from game one when they played Virginia Tech, and it's pretty much been exactly that same thing every single game that UNC has played. And that's literally, it's Sam Howell throws to Josh Downs, rinse, wash, repeat. That's all it. That's all the offense is. It's just Sam Howell either runs or throws to Josh Downs, wash, rinse, repeat. That's all the offense is, And so, a lot of people, I know, like a lot of people were saying, like even my father-in-law, who's a Carolina fan, goes, "Oh well, like we're so bad this year that Sam Howell's going to come back, and play again next season." And it's like, I mean, I think every NFL scout would understand that like last year when he had NFL talent, he was amazing. But unfortunately, and this is something to even like talk about with Mac Brown is I mean he's had I mean of ties, and I mean for him to not have more on both sides of the ball. I mean, defense, I mean, has not been necessarily great this season. And then, I mean, offensive wise, I mean, you pretty much have Josh Downs, Sam Howell, and then, basically 9 other players. It's kind of like a head scratcher for sure. And I mean, but I'm waiting, I just want to be winning the game. So that way at the end of the game, that state students can be chanting, Mac is back. Mac is back, So again, it's a big game. Obviously, there's basically we have to win this game and then hope that Boston College beats Wake Forest in order to make it to Charlotte. Again, especially with it being a night game and I don't know. I mean, I feel like that. And by the way, too, one thing I want to bring up is I loved Drake Thomas's response when he got asked about the Carolina game. He basically just approached it as, it's another game. I'm going to do my job, take care of business, and do everything I can for a win. I'm like, I like it. Kind of like a Bill Belichick-esque answer, So,
Yeah, I think the cool thing about that game too is we're playing it on Friday night, right? So,
correct.
You could imagine emotions would take over on a Saturday if we play a night game on Saturday and then Wake has already won earlier in the day. You feel like it would kind of take a little bit away from the guys, but you're playing on Friday, so you have no distractions. You're basically the only thing you're worried about is just beating the crap out of UNC and then letting fate take its course after that. So I'm obviously it's weird having a Friday night game, especially the day after Thanksgiving, but I think it plays into State's favor because you're not going to have to worry about that distraction of Saturday.
Yeah, there's no checking of phones or checking of the scores. I hear you on that. Right. That's a good point.
Point. I mean, like, potentially if that game, say, was Saturday, if Wake were to lose, that would probably
even more pressure.
Yeah, and then if they had won, we would know that we had no chance, and that might take a little air out of the game too. So I agree. I do like that as Friday night.
That's a good point. So, but again, still a lot to play for. And again, I don't know necessarily what the numbers are, but I mean, one thing that I think is huge for me and huge from a recruiting perspective is Doran has the chance this game to go undefeated at home for the first time in his tenure. And I mean, it's not like we beat scrubs here at Carter Family. I mean, we beat the Clemson, we beat Syracuse and and we beat Louisville team that I mean has looked really good overall for most of the season, and then hopefully beat a Carolina team. So I mean that would be huge. I think if I'm not mistaken, this would be 10 or 11 home game wins in a row.
I think it'd be 10.
Going 10, going back to last season. And I mean, that's a huge recruiting thing for sure. I mean, to say that, I mean, we defend the Carter, I think that is a great pitch to recruits, and it kind of speaks a lot to maybe even necessarily the environment as well. And, because Uh, I just think that again, there's still so much to play for, even on top of the opportunity to go to Charlotte. To win a game at home like that is it's a great thing, and to give Mac his first loss, since returning against us. I mean, hey, every bit and piece can count, right? So
Right.
it'll be a fun one. Um, but one thing though, and again, Ryan, I know that, but for most of our episodes, we usually kind of talk about the ACC in general as well too, and obviously one of the big pieces is with Fuente uh, getting fired from Virginia. I wanted to kind of ask your thoughts on this because one rumor that I've heard is the possibility of Clausen going to Virginia Tech, which I thought was very interesting thought. And I'm not one that I really necessarily liked just because
Yeah.
I don't know. I just don't really understand, the movement within the conference.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily
To
sold on
me,
that.
to me that would just be odd because to me it's the whole Clausen situation is odd, right? So he's
It
been
is.
less successful than Doran has been. And he's been good. Don't get me wrong.
Hmm. He's been great.
But
Yeah.
they're basically a product of the COVID year. You have all these super seniors on your team, right?
Mhm.
And they're the ones producing everything. They got some big trans in, and they're basically reaping from that. They had a good schedule and they're winning. And man, I don't see him going to Virginia Tech,
Yeah.
especially not in the ACC. I feel like I don't know. I think that'd just be an odd move to
Yeah.
go to a team that you could possibly be playing against, and I don't know. It's just that it doesn't seem likely to me. Now,
Yeah.
money talks, so that case you never know. But otherwise, I
That's
don't
true.
think so.
That's true.
Yeah, I think he would. I think he would do well there too, which is, um, but
He would.
I also think, yeah, just in a conference, it's always. I mean, you don't see it a lot. I mean, it could happen. I mean, Virginia Tech is obviously a big step up program wise from Wake Forest, so
Mhm.
maybe, but like you're saying, I think it's unlikely.
Well, because one thing that really bugs me too about this past weekend is, going into the Wake Forest Clemson game, it was announced that Wake Forest did not sell their allotment of tickets, and that immediately just, I think, set a spark with myself and a lot of state fans going like, "Holy smokes, your team has the possibility to win the Atlantic Division," and it's not like it's a far trip. It's Clemson. I mean, you're 4 hours down the road. And how do you not sell out? How? I mean, if that was NC State, I mean, I mean, holy smokes! I mean, I know Clemson fans show
Yeah,
out, but I'm just saying, if it was any game, and we had a chance to win the Atlantic Division, I mean, we'd show out, man. So, I mean, if I'm Clausen, I mean, do I not kind of think about that a little bit? Going, I mean, because I mean, again, I understand, I get it. Because first of all, I mean, Wake Forest only has 8,500 active students at any one
yeah,
time, so they don't have a big alumni base. I get that, but you know, for the work that he's done and for all that he's accomplished, I truly do feel, and again, and we've said this for a long time, the Dave Clawson train is 100% real thing. That I mean, he deserves to go somewhere where he can have the money to invest, to improve facilities, to again, it's just like a huge question to me of wondering, like if he had the backing of like a Florida or like a Virginia Tech, I mean, what could he do with that? Like
right.
with those possibilities, it's unbelievable to think about. So, but anyway, so one thing which I want to do is I wanted to mention Mr. Waters' comments here, which I really liked. So he had mentioned, I love how UNC fans talk so much about getting so many better recruits, quote unquote, than state, and then we have a much better record than them. It really shows how good DD has done with setting a great culture, which I completely agree. And because again, and Brian, I kind of want to get your point on this as well. But one thing which I had said is that with the new rules the way they are and the transfer rules the way they are, it's really kind of taking a lot of pressure off of necessarily the high school recruiting. Because I mean, I can easily just go get a Cyrus Fagan, a Corey Durden, a Derek
Right.
Pitts. I mean is a solid player at their position that's looking to play on a different level or play in a different environment. So do and is also too a player that I know can do well in the college football limelight because obviously the transition to high school to college football is 100% a real thing. So it's uh it's a risk, because you never know how a high school recruiter is necessarily going to handle basically the adult lifestyle and the student athlete lifestyle that a college sport can bring.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how all the transfer rules and everything plays out because, like you said, you can go out and get Fagan and Durden. I mean, how many high school guys are coming out at that size, right? So Thunder Dan, he's a great strength guy, but you still have to build the guys up, right? They're not going to go to sleep and wake up being big, right? You saw that with
Mhm.
Chubb. He came in small, but by the time he
Yeah.
left, he was huge. But
Yep.
it's like when you're getting these transfers, you basically take away that transition year where they come in and they're already ready. They're ready to hit the field, they're ready to play. The only thing you have to do is just get them to buy into the program. And I think
Hmm.
when you brought in Fagan and fans love him, and rightfully so, you have him, you have Durden, you have Pitts, and even Joseph. They come in and they buy into the program. I mean,
Hmm.
they're the biggest fans. They're the
They are.
biggest hype men. They're hyping everyone up. I heard that Durden, he basically came in and all he could say was great things about state. He was like, you guys don't know how good you have it here. And he basically completely flipped how he was feeling at Florida State. Like he didn't like it. And then you come to an actual culture at NC State that Doran has created, and these guys are like, man, this is football. And I think it's huge getting those transfers in, and then they can, produce from day one.
Hmm. Yeah. Michael, anything to add on that?
No, not really. I mean, like you said, it's just I think the biggest thing that you mentioned is that they do have experience playing college football, especially if you can get the transfers from another Power Five school, like we did with Fagan and Durden,
Hmm.
because you said that the gap from high school to college is big. And there's
Hmm.
also a gap between like G5 schools and Power Five schools. So
Yep.
Yeah,
Unless
and I
unless you're
think,
Cincinnati.
yeah,
yeah. I was going to say too, and I think Dorn and those guys, man, I think they're great evaluators of talent. So you had Zavala, he came from a smaller school. Can't remember exactly what it was. It might have been Old Dominion, something like that. And
Hmm.
even you had Pitts. He came from a smaller school. I think it was Marshall. And they
Marshall.
come in. I
Hmm.
mean, these are like D1 guys. I mean,
Hmm.
like possible NFL talent.
right.
And then even in the recruiting game, you had Drake. Thayer wasn't even ranked, and he's one of the top guys in the ACC. And I think those guys, the coaches, are so good at evaluating talent. You even have Josh Pierre-Louis. He was a very under-recruited guy because he was small, and now
Isaiah Moore,
he's
I'll kind of throw into there as well. Isaiah Moore was
yeah.
a not so big
It,
recruit, but
and,
mhm.
and look at him now. I mean, JPL. I think that on PFF, he was one of the best graded safeties in terms of coverage. I mean, and he's just what
Mhm.
basically a COVID freshman still,
Mhm.
sophomore,
Yeah, I
if
think
that. I mean, it's
exactly.
amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, excuse me. So one thing though, which I wanted to kind of mention, Justin Cook brought it up, and I know Mr. Waterham kind of talking about it, but so do you think there's a chance that Dave Dorn might receive some calls from some of these programs after the season?
I I think it's possible. I personally do not see Dave leaving because he has his family basically rooted here.
Hmm.
He has two sons, and I don't see him leaving before they go wherever they go. And I definitely think he's going to get the call, but with state starting to pay more and given the additional extensions, paying the special team or the assistant coaches more, I think it's
Hmm.
kind of helped keep him in a mindset of like, I want to be here. I've built here. They're going to pay me. This is here. I want to
Hmm.
stay here. But I definitely can see him getting calls.
Yep. Now, one thing I did want to clarify, he actually has three sons, and actually his oldest, Luke Dorn, is actually at NC State.
Yeah.
And again, and because one story which I wanted to bring up as well, and I'm sure that because for those who don't remember, so I worked with the running backs when I was a football equipment manager, and so I was very close to Kitchings. And when I was there, Kitching was getting calls from schools, but specifically one that really stood out to him was Furman. He was getting the call from
Yep.
Furman to go be the head coach there. And I remember him telling me that, I mean, because he was really considering it. Again, it's a great opportunity. He gets to go back to his home
Yeah, head
school
coach.
and be the
Yeah.
head coach there, and so which is great. And he pretty much told me that, I mean, his wife and kids pretty much told him, "I don't want to leave Raleigh. I don't want to leave here. Like, I mean, it's a great place to raise a family. It's a great place for, for any business, interests that you have for, for your kids, or, whatever it may be. I mean, it's a great place to live. And so, but also too, I think that for Doran, like, one thing is that, like, if he goes to Florida, let's say, then he's competing against like the Urban Meyer, the Steve Spurrier, for being like, the face of, the program. But for Dave Doran, I mean, I think he's only 11 wins away, 11 or 12 wins away from being the winningest coach in NC State history.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, obviously he's going to get that done within 2 years. And I mean, I think he could easily. I mean, again, he's only in his, I think, late 40s, if I'm not mistaken. And I mean, he's got plenty of, football coaching left, so he can go down and walk away as by far the greatest possible NC State football coach that, has ever come. And so, I mean, he can set his legacy here, I mean, to really, and to really see where he started to possibly where he could end up. I mean, it's you can't get that many places, you know what I mean? You can't get that much anywhere. And because, I truly do believe that, with I think with NC State, there's one thing that we want, an ACC championship, and I mean, obviously beat Carolina as well, but I mean, I think that'll come naturally. But I mean, I think if Doran can bring an ACC championship here, then really a lot of the pressure falls off, really, because then then you pretty much say, well, he won an ACC title, like, that hasn't happened since what, 79 or something like that. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of like, I mean, you're good if you do that, you're good for a while. You know what I mean? Like, that's all it really takes. But just give us that ACC championship.
Yeah, I think one thing that's different, if I could definitely see him getting a call after this season, but I think one thing that's different than like 2017, when there were some pretty heavy rumors about him going to Tennessee. And but up to that point, I think that was 2017. I think at that point his ACC record was probably hovering right around 500 at that point. He had like one or two really good seasons, but now we mentioned it at the beginning. 4 of the last 5 years we've had 8 wins. He's seen that sustained success, and like you said, I think he really wants that ACC championship now, and
I do too.
Yeah, so I don't think we have to worry about that.
Yeah, and I think he's kind of built up the national brand. And I think one of at least my favorite thing that they ever did was get away from the Block S. And I think that really started the rebranding of not just State, but the whole, but the whole athletics program. And I think they've really built State into a national program where they're recognized, right? But and that comes from sustainability. So you finally see it this year where you've been ranked in the top 25 essentially the whole year at this point. And then obviously you had some weeks off, but I mean, you haven't seen that in a while. And, he goes back to wanting the respect of the media or of whoever. And I think they're finally starting to wake up and see, okay, I mean, these guys are for real. They're building something here.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Completely agree on that. I mean, because again, the one thing which I think that Doran has is that he connects with, with the recruits. He connects with the area, the Southern, hospitality vibe that he gives. I mean, he's a guy that, wears his country boots, loves riding the car. He's a guitar player, loves playing, country music. And I mean, so again, I mean, he just connects, I mean, he just connects, and he just understands, like, he thrives in that disrespect us, atmosphere. I mean, again, I always love bringing up the story about, last year we went on the AC Network and bought the, dozen, Krispy Kreme donuts, and then him saying every week, I mean, keep disrespecting us. Cause I mean, I think that's us State fans, is I mean, we're always looked at as the, the younger brother to UNC. But it's like, hey, I mean, that's okay. Like, we're going to make up for it, one way or another. And so I completely agree. I don't see it, because again, it's a risk. If he goes to somewhere like Florida, it's a risk. I mean, he could. I mean, like, look at like a Lane Kiffin per se. I mean, I know he's done really well at Ole Miss, but he's kind of ridden a roller coaster for a long time. Which, and maybe with Clawson too. And we kind of mentioned this as well. Maybe with Clawson, maybe he'll stick around Wake Forest because, hey, he could stay there for 30 years and coach, and nobody's going to say nothing to him. Nobody's going to say anything to him.
It'll be like Cutcliffe. You can just do whatever you want at that point.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And actually, too, you kind of bring that up. So two, I know we've only got a couple minutes here, so I wanted to bring up. So Dino Babers, Cutcliffe, Ryan, do you think they'll be the head coach for 2022?
I think Cut retires. Babers is going to be interesting. I mean, I love it because he's in the Atlantic, right? So we get to play against them. But I think he's a great guy, and I think that's what's kept him at Syracuse. I think everyone likes him, and I think it puts him in a very tough position. I mean, they're the same kind of way. They've kind of rebranded and become stronger, but they're not winning. I think he got that win against Clemson a couple years back. And aside from that, I mean, he really hasn't done much. They had I think it was a 9-win season back when Finley was there, 10-win. Yeah, and they played up there and beat State. But other than that, I mean, it's just been more of the same of what we were seeing this year, 5, 6, 7 wins. It'll be tough, but I think Cutcliffe, they're going to let him retire. And I don't think they'll fire him.
I think that they already, a story on that, they came out that said he's, considering retirement at the end of this year.
Yeah. AK Duke has knocked on door, said, "Hey coach, I think you're, considering retirement."
Yeah, exactly. I think Babers will stay, just because he's got Schrader, who's pretty good. He's a sophomore, and then Sean. I mean,
guy can't throw the ball. Poor guy, man. He can't throw the ball. Poor guy.
That is rough.
But Sean Tucker, I mean, he's a freshman, and he just set the Syracuse rushing record for yards in the season.
Yeah.
So I think he can kind of lean on that to say, look, I've got these guys for the future.
Yeah, and that's a possibility. And again, I mean, I think that, and one thing which I want to point out, State fans, hey, you could be a Texas fan right now, which holy smokes. I mean, if that's not a story, because one thing I do want to say, literally Texas is talking about firing that literally hasn't coached one season yet. Kind of like if they fired Sarkisian after this season, who would want to come coach there? Like, wait, you're telling me I can get fired without even coaching one full season? Like, that's ridiculous.
And then they got to go to the SEC.
And then they got to go to SEC. Yeah, I know. I mean, that's insanity. That's absolute insanity. But I mean, I get it because they spend more money for their football program than any school in the country. So I get it. But I mean, that's insanity. So yeah, as much as we think that life sucks for us as State fans right now, you could be a Texas fan. So just fully understand that. So I know we've got a couple minutes left. So Ryan, give it to me. What's your score prediction for Friday?
Score prediction? I could see it being like a 38-21. I think a lot of that is going to depend on if Howell's playing. And Cooley is out on their defense for the year, so that's going to be a big hit too. He was a pretty good guy. But I think State, as long as they play as they're supposed to, right? As we always say that, as long as they play how they're supposed to, I think they handle it. I don't think, Ty Chandler, he's a great back, but that's playing to State's strengths on defense. But I see State pulling it out, especially at home.
Yeah, and let's assume here, Michael, I'll go and say it to you that let's set it that Carolina that Sam Howell plays. Give me your score prediction.
Yeah. I was pretty far off on my Wake Forest prediction last time. I think I said 30-27 State, but I don't know. That's tough. I'll say I do think we'll win. I mean, I think, and with Howell, because you're saying assuming he plays, if he does play, he's still going to be pretty banged up. Sounds like. I'll say 34-24 State.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking that area, kind of like 35-24, give or take. But again, I think that if he does come back, I mean, that UNC's got to be smart, and they can't run him 15 times, against us like he did there. Because I mean, hey, Devon Boykin, he laid the hammer against in Syracuse yesterday. So I mean, one hit like that on Sam Howell, and that's it. And
and that's where he's been most dangerous this whole season because they've been
Well, nobody's expected it.
Yeah.
He's not a dual threat, at least we didn't think he was, but I mean, maybe he is, so, because one thing too, I wanted to add when it comes to Carolina as well. So, I mean, first of all, I think from a strategy perspective, that, I mean, there could be the chance that Carolina already knows that Sam Howell's done for the season, but
Oh,
yet
yeah,
they want to basically wait until whenever the Thursday or Friday when the injury reports come out to basically make NC State practice preparing for Sam Howell for a
Oh,
couple
yeah,
of
for
days.
sure.
So,
Yeah, it's just like they did with Florida State with Travis. They didn't know
right.
until basically game day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it's kept under wraps like that until right before game time, like Florida State did it.
Yeah. So one thing for State fans who are listening in to keep in mind, and don't be surprised by that. I mean, it's not like necessarily unethical or anything like that, but I mean, it's a strategic move for sure.
Yeah.
So, so we'll see what happens with that. Then the last thing I want to say as well is Dino Babers, great guy. I love Dino Babers as a guy and as a coach. I just, fortunately, so that's what I'm saying. I kind of had a little bit of a soft spot for me for Dino yesterday, watching him during the game and us just absolutely smack his team around. Like, God, I love Dino. I hate for it. I hate it for him. But hey, I'd love to bring him on if Gibson, decides to, move along. And hey, I mean, if Miami decides to do the craziness and fire Manny Diaz, we'd love to have him if Gibson decides to move on. So
Don't talk like that.
Maybe.
I don't want Gibson to leave.
I don't want him to either. But again, it's Doran. But again, Doran has proven that and he says it, that if a coach leaves, he brings in somebody better. And I mean, he's done that. He's done that.
Seems like it so far.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but again, it's a State fans. I mean, again, it's a great position right now that we have a team that's competing in the ACC with 4 players out. And I mean, Luke, and we can literally say, and Ryan, I mean, I don't know if you would agree with this, but I mean that if you were to ask me, would I fire any assistant coach right now?
No chance.
I wouldn't. Not really. No.
Yeah.
I have no issues with any assistant coaches right now. And when's the last time that NC State fans could say that?
Yep.
Yeah.
So the only hope that the only worry that we have is if any of them leave, which I mean, that's the name of the game.
That's
but that's the name of the game. So, but we'll see what happens here. But so thank you again, Ryan, for tuning in with us, man. Really do appreciate your time and really do appreciate your adding in a little bit here and having some fun here talking in-state football here. But hopefully come this time next week. I mean, there could be feeling a bunch of different things, but hopefully we are really excited. Hopefully.
Yeah.
So fingers crossed on that. But so thanks again, Ryan. Really appreciate it, my friend. But please make sure, again, if y'all haven't already, please, for those who are listening, and make sure to hit that subscribe button to really help support us in the channel. Give this video a like. Check out all of our great NC State content. Again, we just recently upgraded our episodes into a much, better format. So, definitely make sure to check that out. Hope you all enjoy it a lot more now. Make sure to give us a follow at Tuffy Talk now. And also to Ryan, I don't know if you want to plug in IPS at all.
Yeah. If you want to follow IPS, it's just Inside Pack Sports on Twitter. My handle is rwilliams_IPS. Give it a follow. At the end of the day, we're all fans. We all want the guys to succeed. And like I said, hopefully next week at this time, we will be just as happy and as positive as we are right now.
Yes,
probably
but for
even
those,
more happy.
That's true. That's true. But for those who are listening in, if you don't know who IPS is and you're not following IPS and James and Steve and Ryan and the guys, then I don't know really what to tell you. So make sure if you aren't, go check them out for sure. IPS is awesome. So with that being said, thank you all so much again for y'all tuning in with us, and we'll see y'all next week. As always, go Pack, y'all.